San Jose State's legacy of poetry includes many students, alums, and employees, including Sandra McPherson, Laura Dean Cervantes, Sally Ashton, Erica Goss, Rochelle Escamilla, Persis Kareem, Alan Sandovsky, Niels Peterson, and many more. We are pleased that this is also an event open to the community, and for the second year in a row, San Jose State's Legacy of Poetry Day is being celebrated at the Hammer Theater. We are pleased to co-sponsor today's celebration with the contemporary Asian American scene. To help kick off our annual Legacy of Poetry celebration today, I am delighted to introduce San Jose State University's president, Dr. Mary Papazian. This year's Legacy of Poetry Day is part of Dr. Papazian's Inauguration Week activities. We are very pleased to have her continue a tradition dating back to our first Legacy of Poetry Day, with the university president kicking off Legacy of Poetry Day by reciting a few poems. Welcome.
Thank you, Shannon, and welcome to our 10th annual Legacy of Poetry Day. I am so pleased to be here to celebrate our university's rich connections to the world of poetry that spans more than 150 years and reaches across the globe. We use the word legacy to describe our celebration because of two poets who not only wrote many poems, but also shared their love of poetry and literature with students at San Jose State beginning in the late 1800s. They encouraged and helped students write and publish their poems. They used their vast connections in the literary world to make it possible for students to participate in poetry readings alongside famous poets of the day such as Ina Colebrith and Joachim Miller. The two poets who created this legacy were alum Edwin Markham, famous for his poem The Man with the Hoe, and Dr. Harry Mead Bland, who taught at San Jose State from 1899 to 1932. For decades, two plaques on Tower Hall honor these two poets. I'm a longtime fan of Edwin Markham and was pleased to learn recently that he is one of our alums. Mr. Markham was an alum dedicated to his alma mater, and even after he moved to New York in 1899, he stayed connected with the campus. He returned a few times to give lectures, including one in 1933 when he was 81 years old. I am pleased that we have many students, alums, employees, and friends joining us today. I'd like to thank the students and employees who organized today's event, and I'd also like to recognize and thank Maxine Hong Kingston, Arlene Biala, Alum, and many other poets here today who celebrate and continue to enrich our legacy of poetry. Thank you, contemporary Asian theater scene, for your support and sponsorship. And thank you to the SJSU Student Group, Poet and Writers Coalition, for your support and for continuing to build our legacy of poetry. And before I kick off by reading a poem, or two actually, by Edwin Markham, I'm going to tell you a little secret. Some of you know this and others don't, but I actually made my living as a professor of English who went into English graduate school because she fell in love with the poetry of John Donne and John Milton. So this speaks very much to the heart of what I believe really makes a lively and important part of our human connection. Nothing is so well expressed as in poetry. And so it's a great honor to kick off our 2017 Legacy of Poetry Day by reading two poems by alum Edwin Markham. I'd also like to note that not only was he a world-renowned poet, but he was also an educator, a champion of human rights, and someone who turned millions of people into poetry lovers. So our first poem, The Daring One. I would my soul were like the bird that dares the vastness undeterred. Look where the bluebird on the bough breaks into rapture, even now. He sings tip-top the tossing elm as though he would a world o'erwhelm, indifferent to the void he rides upon the wind's eternal tides. He tosses gladly on the gale, for well he knows he cannot fail, knows that if the bough breaks, still his wings will bear him upward while he sings. That's it. You can clap. Next year, I'm reading some Dunn, all right? But Mr. Markham's most famous quatrain, which is inscribed on Tower Hall, outwitted. He drew a circle that shut me out, heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. What more to speak to the need to be inclusive and to recognize the value of all voices, which is what this Legacy of Poetry event celebrates. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce Provost Andy Feinstein to say a few words and recite a poem.
There are a few seats over here if you'd like to sit down as well. Why don't you come on over here? Come on over.
Come on in. There's a lot of room on the other side. Thanks, Andy. They can go all the way over to that side. All the way over. Go all the way over so you guys can see it. Lead the way.
We have some more space over here, so come on over.
Follow the crowd. Just over there would be awesome. Wonderful. Okay.
Have a seat right there. Great. Please.
The seat is open. There's some good turnout. Oh, well, here we go. There are two seats.
Well, good afternoon. As President Papazian mentioned, SJSU legacy poet, Dr. Henry Mead Bland, was a faculty member here from 1899 to 1932, and he wrote several books of poetry, served as a faculty advisor, and helped form several literary societies on campus for students, including the Short Story Club. He helped the students publish a literary journal of high quality, launched in 1925 at the Quill. It is still produced by students today as Read Magazine. The current edition is actually for sale here today in the corner. And from all the archival information we have on Dr. Bland, it's clear that he was an extremely popular professor dedicated to student success. In 1929, Dr. Bland was named the California Poet Laureate. His work inspired many poets and future leaders. And here's the full text of a poem that is partially inscribed on a plaque on Tower Hall. I stand foursquare upon the ancient earth and keep my hold upon the solid real. Yet, like a soul that seeks a newer birth, I climb in joy unto the high ideal. My guardian walls shut lurking evil out, lying and hatred and the hidden sin, and cheer and grace encompass me about. My doors are open to let honor in. I am not one of those who only see. Steadfast am I, and destined to endure. And yet my greatest glory is to dream. Dream of the youth who seeks the true and pure. Well, thank you for continuing to make San Jose State's legacy of poetry one of the hallmarks of our university. And I'd also like to thank Professor Alum Sandovsky for his continued work in connecting our students with the great poets of the day, much like Professor Bland did over 3 decades back in the early 1900s. Now I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Lisa Wollendorf, Dean of the College of Humanities and the Arts.
Welcome, everybody, to your Hammer Theater. We've been talking about the Hammer since San Jose State took it over in December of 2015 as the People's Theater. So no better place to celebrate poetry, the beautiful art of San Jose Taiko. Thank you for being here and always making us so proud. Thank you, President Papazian, for being a true advocate and of the liberal arts and of poetry in particular. We're also very grateful that you are in a leadership position at San Jose State in this particular time. Thank you too to Professor Sandovsky and Professor Annette Nellen, who has not been mentioned, but who is one of the true champions of this day. And I've been given a very short stanza, but I think that you will see why. Preparedness. For all your days, prepare and meet them ever alike. When you are the anvil, bear. When you are the hammer, strike. You're not going to clap for that? Without further ado, Professor Alum Sandovsky.
On behalf of the Poets Writers Coalition and everyone who helped to make this event a reality, I'd like to present this bouquet to you, Dean Volkendorf. Thank you so much for all the work that you've done all over the years and for being such a fantastic dean.
Thank you for the opportunity to be the dean of such an extraordinary college.
Another Legacy of Poetry Day is here. We tried to do this in National Poetry Month, but it's great to extend National Poetry Month another week into May. So it's still National Poetry Month for all of us. And we're celebrating a great legacy, not only the legacy of the poetry that came from San Jose State in the company of the great poet Edwin Markham, who went on to fame in New York, and schools are now named after him. I think even more than were named after Longfellow. But we also are celebrating another legacy. This is about 135 years to the day when the U.S. Senate passed something called the Chinese Exclusion Act. And it's something that we regret and which we want to never happen again. So we're celebrating the legacy of Asian Pacific and Asian American poetry in the Bay Area. And we're presenting tonight a group of faculty, students, and alumni who will both read one of their own poems and a poem by an Asian American or an Asian Pacific poet. But to start this properly, we should go back to the time of the first major Asian immigration, and that concerns Angel Island. It's one of the themes of our poster. And I'm going to present my colleague, Professor Noel Breda Williams, who's going to give you a sample and a little information about what happened on Angel Island in the poems carved on the walls there. Thank you all for coming, and thank you President Papazian and Dean Volkendorf and Provost Feinstein for inaugurating this great day.
From 1910 to 1940, Angel Island was a point of entry for immigrants from 93 countries entering through the port of San Francisco. But the vast majority of those detained at the station were comprised of the 175,000 Chinese immigrants who came to America in those 3 decades. Unlike the other immigrants, the Chinese were detained for long periods, awaiting medical and document reviews, and even longer if they were petitioning against deportation. The longest recorded stay was 22 months. While 1 to 3% of those seeking admission at Ellis Island were rejected, roughly 20% of Chinese immigrants were denied entry. In 1922, the immigration station was deemed uninhabitable by the U.S. Labor and Immigration Departments, but it would not be closed down until 1940, when the administration building burned down. While they awaited news of whether they could enter or would be forced to return to China, literate detainees who had an understanding of the forms of classical Chinese poetry expressed their feelings on the walls of their prison. The station walls were painted over when it was made temporarily into a prisoner of war camp during World War II. It was then abandoned for more than 20 years. In 1970, Park Ranger Alexander Weiss helped prevent the center from being torn down in order to preserve the poems carved on the walls that are still visible today, despite the layers of paint and the ravages of time. By the way, when you know you can go home to a warm bed and you can leave and enter the doors at any time, it's a really beautiful place to visit. So I really recommend taking the ferry out to Angel Island. I've selected the following two poems from the collection Island, Poetry and History of Chinese Immigrants on Angel Island, 1920 to 1940. They are translated and numbered by the poet Jenny Lin, who was reading tonight, as well as the late Markham Lai. Between what is visible today and efforts at recording the poems by two detainees in the late 1930s or the early 1930s, we have retained 135 of the immigrants' poems. The first poem I will read, number 31, gives us an idea of what may have been lost beneath the paint. And I think it also offers good advice for my students and my son who's here tonight. This is number 31. There are tens of thousands of poems composed on these walls. They are all cries of complaint and sadness. The day I am rid of this prison and attain success, I must remember that this chapter once existed. In my daily needs, I must be frugal. Needless extravagance leads youth to ruin. All my compatriots should please be mindful. Once you have small gains, return home early. The following poem is number 39, and I think it's good advice for all of us Americans of all ages. Twice I have passed through the blue ocean, experienced the wind and dust of journey. Confinement in the wooden building has pained me doubly. With a weak country, we must all join together in urgent effort. It depends on all of us together to roll back the wild wave. Thank you.
So we have begun, and you know why you are here and what we are remembering and continuing to respect. That is something that enriches the poetry, particularly of our region, which is one of the great regions for American literature in American literary history. So we're going to begin with a poet who's on the faculty, and then after him I will read, and each of us will read one of our poems and a poem by an Asian Pacific or Asian American poet. Let me introduce a person who was once a student at San Jose State, a Steinbeck Fellow at San Jose State, and now a lecturer in the Department of English at San Jose State, a memoirist, a novelist, a poet, Tommy Mutan.
Woo, Tommy!
Thank you. Welcome all. Welcome. I won't read an original poem tonight or today. I have chosen to read Lee Young Lee's The Gift. The Gift. To pull the metal splinter from my palm, my father recited a story in a low voice. I watched his lovely face and not the blade. Before the story ended, he'd remove the iron sliver I thought I'd died from. I can't remember the tale, but hear his voice still. A well of dark water, a prayer. And I recall his hands, 2 measures of tenderness he laid against my face, the flames of discipline he raised above my head. Had you entered that afternoon, you would have thought you saw a man planting something in a boy's palm, a silver tear, a tiny flame. Had you followed that boy, you would have arrived here where I bend over my wife's right hand. Look how I shave her thumbnail down so carefully she feels no pain. Watch as I lift the splinter out. I was 7 when my father took my hand like this, and I did not hold that shard between my fingers and think, metal that will bury me. Christen it, little assassin, or going deep for my heart. And I did not lift up my wound and cry, death visited here. I did what a child does when he's given something to keep. I kissed my father. Thank you. Next up, Professor Alum Sandovsky, Director of the Creative Writing Program at San Jose State University.
How pleasing that you read beautifully Leon's poem. Leon is a friend of mine. I've known him a long time, and he's appeared twice at San Jose State and has often visited our area. I too am going to read from one of his poems. First, let me read one of mine. And again, thank you to the College of Humanities and the Arts. I'm seeking some small grant that's enabling me to work on a new book. And here's a poem from that new book, a relatively new poem. It's called Refugee. And I'll follow that by reading a poem called Self-Help for Fellow Refugees by Leon Lee. This one's in colors, in case you were wondering. You're beginning to seem like a refugee, keeping close to the border, looking for safe transit to cross the Cabur, the Rio Grande. It is always night. There is always a railway. Again, a gate perpetually closed, patrolled by cops or soldiers menacing with their Kalashnikovs. You're trying to get the language to learn how to say you have some money and a summer house by the sea. All you need is a boat, even a raft. An inner tube will do. How about a ride in that battered Nissan pickup to the safe side of the bridge? Please, you tell them with your albatross-like gestures that you're a family man, but without a family, non-threatening as a block of cheese, nothing doing. Everything you do seems to piss someone off, even if it's to show how many golf balls of heroin you can swallow. So you remain here, where you're given a tent. It's canvas, a bright UN blue. But you keep sneaking off, slip-sliding into ditches, sawing your way through the chain link to get to the channel, or tunnel under Nogales, anywhere you can slither under the radar and not be crushed by thousands of others, or be caught and sent back, or be asphyxiated by TV trucks, or dehydrate on a steel deck in the Mediterranean. You can't go home even if they send you. There are explosives of all sizes waiting for your orifices. What alternative do you have? If it's your ambition to escape enslavement, to keep your skin intact, then disembark through a leaky portal to a shrinking continent into a country of bandages, or disappear into El Norte, where your name falls off a train rattling through the desert, where your tongue will decompose without anyone taking notice. You need to get through this so you can bequeath to your kids something more than bones, something more than a passport photograph or a grin on Facebook or a headless torso hanging from a rope. Leon's poem is a slightly different spirit, but on the same topic. Self-help for fellow refugees. If your name suggests a country where bells might have been used for entertainment, or to announce the entrances and exits of the seasons and the birthdays of gods and demons, it's probably to dress in plain clothes when you arrive in the United States, and try not to talk too loud. If you happen to have watched armed men beat and drag your father out the front door of your house and into the back of an idling truck before your mother jerked you from the threshold and buried your face in her skirt folds, try not to judge your mother too harshly. Don't ask her what she thought she was doing, turning a child's eyes away from history and toward that place all human aching starts. And if one day you meet someone in your adopted country and believe you see in the other's face an open sky, some promise of a new beginning, it probably means you're standing too far away. Or if you think you read in the other, as in a book whose first and last pages were missing the story of your own birthplace, a country twice erased, once by fire, once by forgetfulness, it probably means you're standing too close. In any case, try not to let another carry the burden of your own nostalgia or hope. And if you're one of those whose left side of the face doesn't match the right, it might be a clue. Looking the other way was a habit your predecessors found useful for survival. Don't lament not being beautiful. Get used to seeing while not seeing. Get busy remembering while forgetting. Dying to live while not wanting to go on. Very likely, your ancestors decorated their bells of every shape and size with elaborate calendars and diagrams of distant solar systems, but no maps for scattered descendants. And I bet you can't say what language your father spoke when he shouted to your mother from the back of the truck, "Let the boys see." Maybe it wasn't the language you used at home. Maybe it was a forbidden language. Or maybe there was too much screaming and weeping and the noise of guns in the streets. It doesn't matter. What matters is this: the kingdom of heaven is good, but heaven on earth is better. Thinking is good, but living is better. Alone in your favorite chair with a book you enjoy is fine, but spooning is better. Thank you, Leon. As this part of the reading goes, I will call the next person up to the stage, and the person will introduce the following person until we get through our lineup. Would you welcome, please, the Vice President and soon-to-be President of the Holton Writers Coalition of San Jose State, Mr. Brandon Liu.
So this first one, I wrote it back when I first met young adult fiction author Matt De La Peña during a seminar. It's called My Home. Did you expect me to write according to the color of my skin, to speak of myself like the yellowed parchment of Oriental design, to paint myself in the red robes of long-honored tradition, popping firecrackers and flying kites of lizard-like dragons and butterflies. Well, I refuse to be defined by my Asian appearance. The roots of my ancestors may spread past seas across the globe, but the sprouted tree of my being blooms in the soil that I call my home, America. My parents came from a land of coconut juice and dragon fruit, of bamboo hats and rice paddies, where men and women alike ate food from steamed banana leaves and balanced poles upon their frail backs, carrying woven baskets filled with fish or grain, enduring weight heavier than anything their children would ever know. But I was born under different circumstances. I live in a place where everyone looks different, where cultures coexist and colors mix to paint the walls and streets of the city, where people of all walks of life can talk of what they want, what they dream of, and what they hope to achieve. So I too will do the same, because I am an American, and I am whoever I choose to be. This next poem is by Chinese-American poet Jin Han, or Han Jin, depending on how you like to order that. I chose this one because, even though it's written by a Chinese poet, it really resonates with my Vietnamese background. We sat in the neon light on a cool evening of a summer day, drinking beer and eating salad. You told me your story similar to those of many others. All your savings are gone. The managers, the secretaries, the supervisors, the police in charge of passports, all having received a handsome share. Now you have nothing left there. Your color TV and refrigerators were sold to get the cash for the plane ticket. But I was lucky, you assured me. Many people have spent fortunes and still cannot leave the country. What are you going to do here? Don't think this is a place where you can make a fortune by snapping fingers. Starting poor, we have to labor for every dollar. It is a place where money can hire the devil to make a bean curd, and your growth is measured by financial figures. There is no way for us to get beyond a social security number. Anything. I would do anything as long as I can make a living. At least I am free here and don't hate others. Do you know what I wanted when I was back there? I always imagined how to get a gun so I could shoot all the bastards. That country is not a place to live. I would rather die than go back. We stopped to watch the seagulls. An airplane was writing the word fun in the distant sky. I wish I had left the same way, but I brought with me all my belongings, even my army mug and a bunch of old letters. Thank you. Our next reader is going to be Christina Madueño, another member of the Poets and Writers Coalition.
Kim. It's titled Allow Me. If I must worry about how I will live in my old age without wealth, I would be without health now. And how can I live to be old? If I must worry about how I will live in my old age without love, I would be without dreams now. And how can I go on living another day? Allow me to sit in the sun and listen to the sky. I will love you gently. Allow me to stay in my room and weave my rainbows. I will love you truly. Like a colt in a meadow with no boundary, allow me to wander around till I hear the autumn stealthily strolling by my door. I will be waiting to be with you then. And now, this one is by me. It's called Desires. I want to write you a poem, Not because I want to woo you with it, but because I know I cannot approach you. Because approaching you would mean talking to you, and talking to you would mean you would hear me. I write better than I speak, so I want to write you a poem. I want to carve the stanzas into your bedroom ceiling, so that when you lay down at night, you can hear my voice, whispering secrets in your ear like we're teenagers. I want to build you a boat, so that when the ocean of my emotions rushes towards you, you will be prepared. My calloused hands will hold yours as we ebb and flow with the tide like the beat of your favorite song. I want to write you a song. I would sing it for you, but I can't sing. So instead, I will carve you into a sculpture, immortalize you into stone, the same way your face has been immortalized into my brain. I will put it in a museum and call you the greatest work of art I have ever seen. And like all great works of art, not everyone will understand you. But I will. So come with me and be misunderstood. And I will walk you through a garden and make bouquets of laughter bloom from your tulips. And we will walk the path not taken and view the sights unseen. Let me build a house for you. My hands are not that of carpenters, but the foundation will be strong nonetheless. Let me paint the walls the colors of your cheeks when I make you blush. Let these hallways be full of our stories untold and our history that is yet to be made. Let me write you a book of all the things I am unable to say to you. I can hide behind the print and dog-ear the pages full of things that are the most difficult to say. The spine is crooked and the ink is smeared, but the words are true. I want to compose a symphony for you, so the words left unsaid can still reach your ears through music. My hands can cup your face just as headphones would, the delicate electricity between our skin creating sparks that fly high up in the clouds like my mind when I think about you. I want to say all of these things to you, but that would mean you would hear me, so I will write you a poem. And next up, we have the Secretary of the Poets and Writers Coalition, Emily Tang.
Hello. I will be reading a poem by Hajin titled Ways of Talking. We used to like talking about grief. Our journals and letters were packed with losses, complaints, and sorrows. Even if there was no grief, we wouldn't stop lamenting as though longing for the charm of a distressed face. Then we couldn't help expressing grief. So many things descended without warning. Labor wasted, loves lost, houses gone, marriages broken, friends estranged, ambitions worn away by immediate needs, words lined up in our throats for good whining. Grief seemed like an endless river, the only immortal flow of life. After losing a land and then giving up a tongue, we stopped talking of grief. Smiles began to brighten our faces. We laugh a lot at our own mess. Things become beautiful, even hailstones in the strawberry fields. And this is one I wrote to acknowledge my parents' struggles when they first came to America. This one is titled Imperialism. They came in from the waves, brine and fresh, to the brave new world with swords on their shoulders left to tell an old life back in the homeland, and hidden tears and hardened hearts at the thought of shedding old lives for the sake of fortune. They were rats making a home in a freshly built mansion, scavenging for leftovers to bring up families left in the old world, with holes in shirts and sleeves to remember mothers by. Centuries later, here I am, with salty tales of legends and folklore to keep up what has been lost amid paper people in paper towns, built on wood pulp and sweat and tears and skin roughened by the insults of those too colorless to know any better, with souls swayed by ships out to sail, not people from the port, but now riches. Oh, how we have grown, and still they don't see our legacy. Those misguided doves who think they are untouched. Unbeknownst to them, their flower petals are soaking up our genius while they damn us. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce our social media coordinator, Gabriella of the Poets and Writers Coalition.
Hello, thank you guys so much for being here. We've been working on this event every day, every week, this entire semester, so it means a lot that the day is finally here. Today I'll be reading two poems. This first is by Chinese-American poet Jenny Yang Krop, titled Inhale. Up is like down when you die. East and west disappear. Sadness merges with carnations in full red bloom, weeping petals that pile themselves in the sky. I've been close enough to remember laughter, echoing through a hollow body, pushing skin until it is stretched to bursting. Though perhaps those few seconds when I was done, that laughter was all in my head. Sometimes it's just a dream where I'm vapor, expanding in panic, drifting out and out until I wake up heavy and solid. Death should be harder to remove, but consciousness came even when I tried to lose it. It was always a spasm of regret and then a sudden intake of breath, electric shock of relief for the flesh. But it will end differently one time, and I will learn by accident the secret to keeping death. Its eternity of starlight pressing shut my eyelids, and I'll stare into the vague red distance. This next piece is something I wrote over the summer, this past summer, titled I Endure. Contentment seldom finds me beneath the snowy Jersey sheets of a sleepy Sunday morning. My waking hours trudge along, awaiting a cure for boredom often found between the dog-eared pages of a self-help book I've started several times before. I can't cope with the stillness, so I drown myself in voices of friends, busy work, my next new hobby. These blessings are rarely fulfilling. As I ramble from place to place, person to person, I long for sleep, restful sleep. As my thoughts slip further away from the earthly plane on which I exist, I resist, I endure. But my weary legs can only carry me so far. Somehow, as if by divine intervention, I can accomplish something. I can work, I can provide, I can earn, and learn on my most formidable days. But the menial things I cannot touch, at least not now. I wonder if my facade is as transparent as I fear, if the world will see my weakness in fighting a battle I have not yet won. Thank you. Our next reader tonight is Robert Pasalacqua.
Okay, so I'm going to read my first poem, which is another poem by Ha-Jin. It's called Missed Time. My notebook has remained blank for months, thanks to the light you shower around me. I have no use for my pen, which lies languorously without grief. Nothing is better than to live a storyless life that needs no writing for meaning. When I am gone, let others say they lost a happy man, though no one can tell how happy I was. And then my second poem is one that I wrote for English 109, which the professor was Jen Johnson. And I was very blessed to receive the James Phelan Award for it. It's entitled Jean-Jacques. The stapes is the smallest bone in the human body, but it is still part of the body. The phrase is merely a grouping of words in a sentence, but it is still part of the sentence. The 5-foot wide snow patch that rests apart from the ones that are prone to cause avalanches only covers but a rock on Mount Shasta, but it is still part of the mountain. The OGLETR 122b is the smallest star in the universe and looks like God took a white-colored pencil and dotted navy blue construction paper, but it is still part of the universe. My first love, whose smile grasped my eyes in its tender hands, is still part of my heart. And Jean-Jacques, my cousin, killed by the hands of our very own. Though only once our paths intertwined, you are a part of me. Thank you.
my name is Stephen Domingo. You might also know me by the name Esteban Sunday. I go by both. Usually as an artist, as a musician, I go by Esteban Sunday. But as an academic, Stephen Domingo is fine. My first poem is by an ancient Chinese poet about another ancient Chinese poet. This is Zhuangzi and the Butterfly by Li Po. Zhuangzi in dream became a butterfly, and the butterfly became Zhuangzi at waking. Which was the real, the butterfly or the man? Who could tell the end of the endless changes of things? The water that flows into the depth of the distant sea returns anon to the shallows of a transparent stream. The man, raising melons outside the green gate of the city, was once prince of the East Hill. So must rank and riches vanish. You know it, still, you toil and toil, will fall. Alright, so now originally, I was gonna do a song off my upcoming album coming out in the fall, but I couldn't get the tech for my background music, so I'm gonna switch it up and read a poem that I wrote. It's a poem in 4 voices, a white cop, a Mexican cop, a black man, and a Filipino man. And it's a 4-part poem. Part 1, Code 4. At 5:36 p.m., I make a left-hand turn westbound onto Monterey Road. I spot a black Chrysler 200 with dealer plates headed eastbound. The driver is an African-American male with a Hispanic-American male passenger, both 18 to 35. I make a U-turn at the end of the median and begin pursuit. There is light traffic, but we were able to catch up to the Chrysler in a short time. The perpetrators make a right-hand turn northbound onto Tully Road. Officer Gomez and I pull them over as they tailgate a car to beat a red light on 10th Street. I make my way to the driver's side window, obtain his license and his insurance documents, as well as the passenger's information. Officer Gomez conducts the traffic stop while I run the information through the system. The driver is a cook at a Korean restaurant and father of 2. The passenger, a graduate student at San Jose State. I wait for Gomez to finish conducting his interaction. These are not the ones. Part 2. Package thief strikes again. So we make a left on Monterey and Hoyt points out this black Chrysler, no plates. This motherfucker is bloodthirsty as hell, so it's just a matter of time. We follow them all the way down toward the east side. These pendejos will obviously see us coming, and they think they can lose us at a yellow light, like for real? No way they can get away. I hit the lights, we roll through the intersection, and Hoyt makes a beeline for the driver. He gets the information and starts running that shit. I go to the passenger and get his ID, Spanish last name, lives in the east side, he's got those indigenous eyes, dark skin, wearing red and black. I'm thinking we got a norteño on our hands. So I start drilling them with questions on the off chance that they're stupid enough to confess some shit. No bites. I give the passenger papers to Hoyt, who tells me the black one's clean. I tell Hoyt to let me do all the talking, because knowing his pasty ass, he'd probably catch a case, and we don't want another Mario Woods or Mike Brown situation. We're already short-staffed, and we can't afford to have one of us on paid leave, especially not Hoyt with his ball-busting ass. If anyone should get a vacation, it should be me, for the Oscar-worthy performance I gave, because I can tell these assholes are getting upset. I'm telling them that they passed on my test, that we're looking for bricks of cocaine and Uzis under the seat. I tell them that about that cabron with the crack balloon in his ass. I said I caught him because he didn't have no plates. Remember that car full of M16s from Oakland that Chen and Jeffries brought in? I told them that me and Hoyt caught him. And the Mexican's eyes are wide open right about now. And I've got him by the balls. At this point, I look over to Hoyt, who's shaking his head no. After all that, these aren't even the right guys. I'm just stalling until Hoyt gives their shit back, so I start blowing smoke up their asses, admitting that they fit the profile, that I fit the profile myself, and those dicks at CHP keep pulling me over. And I tell them they're fucking lucky because they passed my test. Because we could have gotten them for those plates. That's my bread and butter. I've written up people for a lot less than them, and I figure that's not even worth the paperwork. We've already wasted enough of our time, and that's when Vega calls in about the package thief in Evergreen again. Like we can fucking do something about it? What a fucking dumbass. Sorry about the language in that one, I realized there's children in the room. Part 3, the driver. We're about to hit up the dispensary, and when we see them turning, we both call it. We knew it too, because they had to drive around the island just to be behind us. They followed us from the Burger King on Monterey, all the way down to fucking Tully, bruh. But you know what? I got my license back, I made the payment on the car, the plates are on the way, registration in the mail, I'm ready for it. There's nothing they got on me. And my homeboy, he's Asian, so he ain't got shit on his record, we're golden. So I make a turn on Tully, and they're falling behind a little bit. We make a yellow light, easy. Whoa, whoa, the fucking pigs with the red light, ran the red light just to catch us. We're in the far left lane trying to turn, but they make us pull all the way over to the right in front of a school that's kind of next to the fairgrounds, kind of by that parking lot where they have the flea market on Saturdays. So I roll down my window because I'm not afraid. There's nothing they can do to us because we're with the shit. The white cop runs up on me real quick, I hand him my papers, and I tell him I'm waiting on the DMV to send me my plates and stickers. I told him to go ahead and run that shit, please, but then the brown cop starts knocking on the passenger side window, and I roll that shit down all the way too. They don't need us to roll the other one down. There's no law requiring it, but he asked for my homeboy's ID. There's no reason why they need his ID for a regular traffic stop, so I know they're fucking with us. Well, homeboy's from the east side, so we know he ain't new. He hands the cop his ID. The cop looks him up and down and starts accusing us, talking about bricks of cocaine, and shows us how big with his hands, looking for choppers under the seat. I'm like, go ahead and search the car. All they're gonna find is car seats and diapers, bruh. He starts telling us about some thugs from Oakland and how he did all this extra shit to some dude with a handful of crack in his asshole. Some bullshit. I'm thinking, what the fuck does that have to do with us? And he tries to play it off, talking about we passed his test, how he gets pulled over by CHP for fitting a profile. First of all, he told us that they just profiled us. Secondly, why is his brown ass getting pulled over? He knows it's fucked up. I'm just trying to get it together because I know homeboy's getting pissed by the look on his face. Brown cop is trying to connect with us, covering up for some white pig. They didn't even run the insurance. If they did, they would have seen the car was registered to Jamaica. They didn't even bother with it because they knew this shit was racist bullshit. They pulled over the wrong motherfuckers, clearly. They could have spent that time on the real killers out there, but instead, they're fucking with us because we fit a damn profile. I can't wait to get my tax return back. Can't believe we paid for this shit to happen to us. Part 4, Filipino American. I grab the door handle and grip it tight to keep myself from panicking. My heart rate goes up. I throw up a little in my mouth. I keep my head pointed forward. Every time it happens, I can never believe it. One time they followed me from Taylor all the way down to Ocala. This time I wasn't even driving. But he knocked on my window and I gave him my papers. Upon seeing my address, he asked me where Rubian was. His eyes lit up like every other officer who's asked me that exact same question. The East Side. I have never felt more brown as another brown face raids my skin looking for bricks to flip and triggers to point at me in the court of law. He sticks his hand under my nose, bragging about the fistful of crack he pulled out of some addict's asshole, calling me a criminal because I was riding around with my friend. Whatever model minorities look like, they must not look like me. Thank you. Next is Brian Smith. Round of applause for Brian Smith, everybody.
So I have a poem here by Gabriella, and just as the parental warning, this poem is kind of graphic. We can deal with that. Okay. It's called I Have Got to Stop Loving You, So I Have Killed My Black Goat. His kidney floats in a bowl, a beige flatfish around whom parasites, slices of lemon, break through the surface of hot broth, then sink below. As I bend face down in the steam, breathing in, I hear this will cure anything. When I am finished, I walk up to him. He hangs from a short wooden post, tongue stuck out of his mouth, tasting the hay-flavored air. A bib of flies gather at his throat, and further down where he is open and bare of all his organs, I put my hand in, stroke him once, then taking it out, look at the sky. The storm clouds there break open, and raindrops, yellow as black cat's eyes, come down, each a tiny river, hateful and alone. Wishing I could get out of this alive, I hug myself. It is hard to remember if he suffered much. And this is one of my own poems. It has to do with one of two areas of garbage, plastics, and toxins that are collecting in the Pacific Ocean. It's called Diving into the Eastern Garbage Patch. Slipping into the heaving gyre of debris like snakes and ladders, children's toys coagulate in the brine, shreds of cellophane, bubble wands, hot wheel tire and a shrimp's belly, life's plasm patched and slant. I swim with the plastic and plankton, the jellies and jelly jars. I dance with them or sink, tiny pearls of polymer on my skin, sequins in the salt. Beating through the slosh and snot, worm-like fish devour morsels of degraded soap bottles, joke hats, joy sticks, and candy box hearts, bisphenol A and PCB, the polyethylene vomit of amusement, this our island, it swims in the veins of my face. No way to run home, no way to sleep off this hangover. Next we have Evelyn So.
No, it's Roxanne. Oh, next.
What?
Roxanne Powell, she's next.
Roxanne Powell?
Yes.
Okay, Roxanne, you're next.
I was convinced there would be like 5 other people in front of me. It's not fair. Okay, so first I'm going to read a poem by Fanny Judah called The Tea and Sage Poem. At a desk made of glass in a glass-walled room with red airport carpet, an officer asked my father for fingerprints, and my father refused. So another offered him tea, and he sipped it, the teacup template for fingerprints. My father says, it was just hot water in the bag. My father says, in his country, because the earth knows the scent of history, it gave the people sage. I like my tea with sage from my mother's garden, next to the snapdragons. She calls fish mouths coming out for air. A remedy for stomach pains she keeps in the kitchen, where she always sings. First, she is haggard, boiling water where tea is loosened. Then she drops in it a pinch of sage and lets it sit a while. She tells a story. The groom arrives late to his wedding, wearing only one shoe. The bride asks him about the shoe. He tells her he lost it while jumping over a house wall, breaking away from soldiers. She asks, tea with sage or tea with mint? With sage, he says. Sweet scent, bitter tongue. She makes it, he drinks. This next poem is one I wrote for a class last semester. It's called The Moon Did Not Smile. Not one word is true. I was not there at his house. The night air did not slip through the door and chill my ankles. I did not call and drive over in the dark. Every traffic light did not tighten the knot in my stomach. We did not watch TV on separate couches. Commercials in Spanish and English did not provide the only light in the room. My eyes did not find him in the dark between scenes, drawn like a magnet to iron. He did not hug me. My eyes did not beg to stay. I did not stand outside of my car and look up at the moon. I did not pray for the strength to drive away. The moon did not smile. And if my list is correct.
Oh, Megan Alfaro was up next.
Oh.
I'm right here.
Excellent.
Hello. So I'd actually like to start with a poem that I wrote, hopefully so that I'll be warmed up to read the Franny Choi poem that I brought for you. So first things first, this is a poem that I wrote called Remnants, a Triptych. It's in 3 parts. They came through the waterless sea of dehydrated cedar and stunted scrub brush, whose gray, naked fingers strove skyward in supplication, remembering the sea fronds that lived in this same sand when we were all mollusks and diatoms. Yucca yields to slate and adobe, then shanties made of pallets filled with cement or empty ammunition boxes layered with sheet metal and choked with chicken wire. Orange dirt flavors everything with arid decay. The fractured skulls of small animals crunch underfoot with the calcified remains of someone's better life. Horse teeth are shattered among rabbit ribs. Dirt devils dash them all to flour against the sides of single-wide trailers emerging from the landscape like tumuli. A gaggle of children in sun-faded clothes kick a deflated basketball into the sharpened grit down the unpaved road. Their laughter crumbles to brittle shards, like everything does out here. An old man sits shelling nuts with subtle tools, an unlit cigarette dangling from his wattled mouth. His face a gnarled stump, his petrified boots brown and cracked. White hair, thick and mole-glorious on his nose. He knows and does not know that she is dead, that she isn't just down the hall. We're solicitous strangers who have come to take away her things. He disdains the women who ask if he wants to eat or a bath or to turn his hearing aids on. He remains in his chair with the worn velvet cushion, sitting sentinel by the storm door with eyes bright and hands busy with pecans. Where did he find pecans out here where the sun can set your skin to peeling in under 10 minutes? They came in their black dress clothes, subdued moods and lowered eyes, shuffling down the carpeted walkway to look at the body. They put her in a dress the color of stones found in Pueblo jewelry sold from woven blankets on the streets of Santa Fe. Her hair was the wrong shade and the lipstick was not right, and whose idea was it to get the gold casket? Preposterous. No one said it looked like she was sleeping. Thank God, she hated bullshit. If she were there, she'd be smoking and telling the little ones not to go touching everything. Hair crimson and stiff with aquanet, her voice ostentatious, her manner garish, but I don't know what we would talk about. To me, she was more a sustained red static than a physical being. I'm not sure what she is now. My father asked if we touched the body. He says he made sure he was the last person to touch his father before he was given up to the ground. I emerged to the street, wincing against the invasive brightness, exhaling sand and heat like everyone does out there. Okay, so this next one is written by Franny Choi, and she does lots of performances. I'm not much of a performer, but I'll see if I can do her justice in the reading. And this one is called To the Man Who Shouted, "I like pork fried rice" at me on the street. You wanna eat me out,
right? What does it taste like? You want to eat me right out of these jeans and into something a little cheaper, more digestible, more bite-sized, more thank you, come, I am greasy for you. I slick my hair with MSG every morning. I'm bad for you. Got some red light district between your teeth. What does it taste like? A takeout box between my legs. Plastic bag, lady. Flimsy white fork to snap in half. Dispose of me. Taste like dried squid. Lips puffy with salt. Lips brimming with foreign, so call me pork. Curly-tailed obscenity. Been playing in the mud. Dirty meat. Worms in your stomach. Give you a fever. Dead meat. Butchered girl. Chopped up and cradled in styrofoam, you candid cannibal. You want me bite-sized, no eyes clogging your throat, but I've been watching from the slaughterhouse. Ever since you named me edible, tossed in a cookie at the end, lucky man, go and take what's yours. Name yourself archaeologist, but listen carefully to the squelches in your teeth and hear my sow squeal scream murder between molars. Watch salt awaken, writhe, synapse. Watch me kick back to life. Watch me tentacles and teeth. Watch me resurrected, electric. What does it taste like, revenge? Squirming alive in your mouth, strangling you quiet from the inside out.
Up next, we have Kimi Martinez.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's nice to be in a cool area. I was afraid we were going to have the doors open like last year. Very hot here, so. I'd like to do 2 poems. One is from one of my favorite poets, Ogawa. And if you don't know her, I have a few sentences from Poetry Foundation, who did a good job of describing her, and I just have a couple of lines to tell you about her. I, as a poet, noted for her uncompromising poetic vision and bleak dramatic monologues, which give voice to marginalized, often poor and abused speakers. Though born Florence Anthony, she legally changed her name to I, which means love in Japanese. She has said that her given name reflects a scandalous affair my mother had with a Japanese man she met at a streetcar stop. Okay, so that's I. When I was reading this poem, it's called Woman to Man, I was thinking about a story that is about the nation, let's see, Osage. Has anybody heard of the Osage Nation?
Yes.
Yes, good, yes. I just heard a story on NPR about a writer writing, and I'm sorry I don't remember the name, but who's writing about the Osage Nation and the Osage murders. And let me just tell you briefly about that, and then I'll go on to do, I promise I'll go on to do these poems. The Osage Nation had inherited a lot of money. There are Native American Indians, Native Americans in Oklahoma, Midwest. And they inherited, they had a lot of land that was given, I guess, back to them from the government, and found out that they actually had oil in their land. And so there was a conspiracy, am I getting this right? A conspiracy that it was a European white county, and men would marry the women from Osage Nation, even to one family, which was Molly Kyle, who married a white European man who had 2 children with her. And these murders were to take over the land that the Osage had, and that was millions of dollars. It was a lot of money. This also reminded me of a folklore of my great-grandfather, who was Black Choctaw, great-grandmother, who was Black Choctaw, and my great-grandfather, who was a white European man, and apparently he had married my great-grandmother for her land, because she had inherited land from the Native American, from her tribe. And he was not a very nice man. And so the folklore is that there was a curse put on him by my great-grandmother's tribe. And, what is a curse, right? Well, I like to say the curse is me, because I'm here to tell the story, okay? So this woman to man kind of puts that in hopefully in perspective. Woman to man by eye. Lightning hits the roof, shoves the knife, darkness, deep in the walls. They bleed light all over us, and your face, the fan, folds up. So I won't see how afraid to be with me you are. We don't mix, even in bed, where we keep ending up. There's no need to hide it. You're snow, I'm cold. I've got scars to prove it. But open your mouth. I'll give you a taste of black you won't forget. For a while, I'll let it make you strong, make your heart lion. Then I'll take it back. So this is my poem that I wrote in the same kind of vein, and it's dedicated to the late I. She awoke, whispering, I'm going to die soon. I replied by shoving her head back into the waters, eyes balloon, holding tops of pines and silky whites thrown up against cerulean blue, lashes thrash about, grab tops of pines, grab at her cheeks, thread in her skin like knots of barbed wire around a pasture of rotten leaves. It is unusual to watch a reflection shut its eyes. It's unusual to watch a reflection shut its eyes. Echoes of maiden hair entwine with hair. The rib cage is strummed by the wings of blue morphos vibrating within the chambers of nature, and ankles settle in the black mud. Knife held to my mother's throat, me reminding him he loved my brother and I, so he set it down behind his back. I've learned to scrape smiling faces in blood spilt in concrete. I don't know what song you want me to sing, half-rooted in Aztec ruenas. My heart is left bleeding upwards in the open sky. I'm a mixed lot. Nobody claims me when I'm nothing unidentifiable. And much like I am the whole lot of nothing found in everything. Don't memorize me, young ducks, swimming silent in your sea. I'll grab your throat and drown you like I drown me. I'll turn you into squawking, hissing, violent geese. Thank you. Yes, I would like to introduce, here she is, coming up, Kate Lycurgus.
You students up there on the stairs, would you either leave or be very quiet, because we're trying to hear these poets down here. Okay?
Thank you all for coming today. I know it's a long set, and I'm honored to be a part of this. Today I'm going to read a poem by a friend of mine.
so this is called The Last Thing. The Last Thing. They take the books, the crates of 80s 12-inch singles, a few dozen letters from Manila, LA, Seville. They take my stinky trash can and cracked plastic chair, the rickety plywood shelves, 11 photos of my mother, leaving me with one. They take the dim shots of my brother's young faces beside mine. They take away the clean sheets folded among the soiled ones, the hand towels stained with fevers and shit, and official notices of all my dead, stuffed in a box with 3 dead flies. Oh, and the tangled brush of a woman whom I loved for 1 whole week, which, remembering her, makes me lift my hand as if to propose half a prayer, or to illustrate the best way to answer a deaf king is to drop a fist on a heavy table in place of blasphemy's last syllable. They take it all from a cold, rented 5-foot space, and when I can't pay, they cross my name out, double shackle the gate, fill every proper form, and price the pitiful lot for the block. They call me to cough up over and over, say, explain yourself. I don't have the cash. Shame is like you're made of 10,000 beautiful doors, and every day you try to keep them all from flying open at once. They reach inside and take the boxes of shoes and old shirts, the third-hand scratched-up oak desk I heaved up 20 steps overlooking West Grand Avenue with their battalion of metallic hands. They'll take away silence. They'll take away touch. They'll take music, too, which is when I'll stand up alone and walk toward you and offer a few fingers for you to lead me to an empty door and sway. They'll take the light. They'll confiscate my teeth and leave the knives with no handles. They'll take it all away. They take away weeping and take away laughter. Not last to go are the goats, as if I could forget the curses. And they take my eyes. They won't even eat them. They have taken so much. I am standing now somewhere at the end of a road which leads to a beach beside a sea that a million ghosts keep crossing, leaving everything I once had, everything I've become, everything electric and a muscle to make one minuscule move again toward the beautiful in that wacky wandering, in that bloody path, in that smoky inventory of a quarter century, and that ambling and that sprint towards every gorgeous living thing, no matter how tortured or peaceful. I am going. I am almost completely gone. I am stepping away. Watch me as I leave the forks. I leave the hammers. I leave the bones. I am left with love. I leave the boiled coins, the thin shells of swans. I am left with love. I leave the latches and bolts open. I am left again and again with love. I leave and I leave and I am left again and again, and I can't seem to shake it. The rage leaves me and leaves me again and again, and love is left. It is all that is ever left, and today I am blessed. I am the last thing burning. So when everything is taken away and you don't know what to do, I've found, for me at least, the only thing that I can do is lift up my hands and offer praise, which seems countercultural and counterintuitive, but sometimes it's all I have. So this is my poem today that I have for you. Is called Suppose the Function is Praise. When doctors have given their final shot, or volleys rocket insomniac dark, without thought, lift your hands. In strobing raids at pepper spray, with cheek to asphalt, at fault or not, go on, lift your hands. And stand, though gravel erodes to sea, don't grovel or chop as the chopper kicks sand, or knife unleashes its red shock and flow. Unaided, blood rises, so lift your hands, given this heart's unassisted pump. No matter the lack of water to quench a jigsaw of dirt, the belly distended, lift your hands at the child unplanned who you cannot nurse, and
verso also ran, and lift your hands when the only man you'll ever love has a son with someone else. Or a husband no longer knows the name of the one you raised together. Now, raise a glass instead. This is occasion for champagne, for all the aspirin a body can take, for the glint of a chemical sunset's blaze and licking the high fructose glaze off those same fingers. Just lift them now. In don't shoot, please. In fluid go to save my feet. At mile 60, when gas burns clean and you've made it past your dead-end streets with a single album of soul on repeat, lift your hands at the great unknown, at the bank account, mawing, oh, however infinitesimal the means become, or waste will cinch. Infinite the ways to lift our hands and coax them overhead. Infinite our approach. Up next, we have Alum.
Thank you very much. I'd like to read 2 poems for you today. This first poem is Persimmons by Myun. In 6th grade, Miss Walker slapped the back of my head and made me stand in the corner for not knowing the difference between persimmon and precision. How to choose persimmons? This is precision. Ripe ones are soft and brown spotted. Sniff the bottoms. The sweet one will be fragrant. How to eat? Put the knife away. Lay down newspaper. Peel the skin. Suck it and swallow. Now eat the meat of the fruit. So sweet. All of it to the part. Donna undresses. Her stomach is white in the yard. Dewy and shivering with crickets, we lie naked, face up, face down. I teach her Chinese. Crickets, crickets, chi-chi. Do? I've forgotten. Naked, I've forgotten. Ni wo, you and me. I part her legs. Remember to tell her she is beautiful as the moon. Other words that got me into trouble were fight and fright, ren and yarn. Fight was what I did when I was frightened. Fright was what I felt when I was fighting. Wrens are small plain birds. Yarn is what one knits with. Wrens are as soft as yarn. My mother made birds out of yarn. I loved to watch her tie the stuff. A bird, a rabbit, a wee man. Miss Walker brought a persimmon to class and cut it up so everyone could taste a Chinese apple. Knowing it wasn't ripe or sweet, I didn't eat, but watched the other faces. My mother said every persimmon has a sun inside, something golden, glowing, warm as my face. Once in the cellar, I found 2 wrapped in newspaper, forgotten, not yet ripe. I took them and set both on my bedroom windowsill, where each morning a cardinal sang, the sun, the sun. Finally understanding, he was going blind, my father sat up all night, waiting for a song, a ghost. I gave him the persimmons, swelled, heavy as sadness, and sweet as love. This year in the muddy lightning of my parents' cellar, I rummaged, looking for something I lost. My father sits on the tired wooden stairs, black cane between his knees, hand over hand, gripping the handle. He's so happy that I've come home. I ask how his eyes are, a stupid question. All gone, he answers. Under some blankets, I find a box. Inside the box, I find 3 scrolls. I sit behind him and untie 3 paintings by my father. Hibiscus leaf and a white flower. 2 cats preening. 2 persimmons. So full they want to drop from the cloth. He raises both hands to touch the cloth. Asks, which is this? This is persimmons, father. Oh, the feel of the wolf tail on the silk, the strength, the enhanced precision in the wrist. I painted them hundreds of times, eyes closed. These I painted blind. Some things never leave a person. Scent of the hair of the one you love, the texture of persimmons in your palm, the right weight. Thank you. This next poem is one I wrote just this year. So it's titled, What Am I Doing Again? What Am I Doing Again? Procrastination, a 5-syllable word that has become a hobby. From the dawns of the 7th grade to the latest as this morning, I've always had trouble doing work that's ever so boring. Shall my focus today be on my phone or in a fight against Chun-Li? The alarm rings. It is now the time to get out of bed. But I choose to roll over and slip in a few more minutes instead. My thoughts haunt me because I know there is so much to do. Get out of bed, Alum, get out of bed! Passive commands rolling through my head. But my body remains lying with its soft wool trap stuck like glue. Alas, arise, young warrior, laying like a baby in its ward. 'Tis the time to conquer all that challenges you with thy pencil sword. Ambition in my fingertips, lightning bolts emulating from my eyes, rising straight up with my socks from the bottom, right when I make the move to read a few more pages and another math problem, actually dealing with the work where on my desk it lies. Yes, yes, yes! My body arises with newfound feelings of motivation and zen. All but just to lead to slacking off yet again. Thank you.
Next up is Ruhi Bora.
Thank you. It's nice to see some familiar faces. I'm going to read one of my own poems first. It's a very short poem. And it's in memory of my late father. He passed away in 2011, and every year on his death anniversary, I write him a poem. So this year I was in Pakistan earlier in January, and I wrote this poem for him. Loss, in memory of my late father. We went back to our home in Karachi, my mother, sister, and nephew, where my father had passed away. Early January, his birthday month, was also the month of weddings, cold rains, and pale sunshine. My mother tended the garden, and my father read his newspaper, sat on his favorite lawn chair, sipping tea. And today, the memories come rushing back. The room he lay in became our abode. My nephew and I arranged fresh sheets on his bed and slept the night clinging to his memories. We dreamt our own dreams. He, young and eager, held Grandpa's frail hands. I, old and wise, rubbed tiger balm on his calves and feet. Neither of us ever said goodbye. We lay on our sides of the bed, in slumber remembered the times gone by, sensing our loss. Till he appeared magically between us in the wee hours of dawn, and when we woke up, we could have sworn that he smiled. And the other poem is by Faiz Ahmed Faiz, and tonight I want to pay tribute to this Pakistani poet. He was a journalist, Marxian activist, filmmaker, broadcaster, teacher, translator, and recipient of the Lenin Peace Prize. Faiz Ahmed Faiz was a legend in his lifetime. And when he read at a mushaira or a concert, people would gather to listen and participate. The finest musicians in the subcontinent composed music to songs using his lyrics, and every popular singer has sung his richly meaningful ghazals. widely revered as a leading Urdu poet with Ghalib and Iqbal. He became for Urdu lovers of South Asia a source of great ideological power, a symbol of revolt and dissent, and a love for humanity. And I wanted to actually sing a geet or a short ballad, and it's in Punjabi. I don't know if anybody here knows Punjabi or Pushpa, maybe. Okay, all right. So that's a provincial language of Pakistan, and the geet or the poem is titled Kitrina, and it laments lost love. Faiz Ahmed Faiz said the true subject of poetry is the loss of the beloved, and this geet reflects that sentiment, and I will give you an English translation after I sing this one for you. So. Pendiyan dasan ve pardesiya teriyan kidre na pendiyan dasan ve pardesiya teriyan कांग उड़ावां शगन मनावां वगदी वादे तरले पावां जदों तेरी याद पवे ते रोवां जदों तेरा जिक्र करां ते हसां किधर न पैंदियां दसां किधरे ना पेंदियां दसां वे परदेसिया तेरियां दर्द न दसां घुलदी जावां राज न खोला मुकदी जावां किसनू दिल दे दाग बतावां किधर आगे झोली ढावां किसदा दामन खसां वे मैं किसदा दामन खसां वे परदेसिया तेरियां शाम उदीका फजर उदीका आंखें ते सारी उम्र उदीका आंज गवांडी दीवे बल दे रब्बा साडा चानन खल दे साडा चानन खल दे जग वसदाए मैं भी वसां वे परदेसिया तेरियां किधरे ना पेंदियां दसां वे परदेसिया तेरियां किधरे ना. I beg the breeze for a whiff of you. I think of you and cry. I talk of you with joy. No word of you, no trace nor clue. My pain well hid, I pine away. My secret safe, I bleed. Who shall I show my wounded heart? Who shall I beg? Whose mercy plead? No word of you, no trace nor clue. I wait at dusk, I wait at dawn, I'll wait for you all life. Lit lamps brighten neighbors all. Lord, send me my moon for light. The world lives on. should live. No word of you, love, no word of you. Thank you. And I want to introduce our next poet. It's Edwin, and she's recently graduated with an MFA from Sandovsky State. Please welcome Edwin.
Hear me? 6:45, yes. So this is the beginning of the alumni reading segment. And I'm going to start with a poem I wrote a few years ago. It's for my family, especially my grandparents, who were the first to come over from China, and who I think are unique in my family for appreciating both the arts and the sciences. After supper. Tonight, I sit at the table eating fruit, watch the sky darken, feel the coolness of evening through the open window. On my bookshelf, a photograph, Grandmama's Chinese dress, gray as the Rochester sky with hints of blue and coral. White carp, birds in midair. Grandpapa's black suit, black bow tie. They beam at the camera. On the wall behind them, one of her Chinese watercolors. Red petals, gray-black leaves, shadows, or birds resting on a branch. I never saw Grandmama or Grandpapa lift an apple or pear or peach to the mouth and bite into it. The way I'm eating my gala. Flesh tangy and sweet, crisp. First, I washed the apple with soap, as they did. I left in the drawer the knife they used to pare away long curls of bitterness. I recently read this poem, which I just had to share, by Shirley Geok-Lin. Learning to love America because it has no pure products, because the Pacific Ocean sweeps along the coastline, because the water of the ocean is cold, and because land is better than ocean. Because I say we rather than they. Because I live in California, I have eaten fresh artichokes and jacaranda bloom in April and May. Because my senses have caught up with my body, my breath with the air it swallows, my hunger with my mouth. Because I walk barefoot in my house. Because I have nursed my son at my breast, because he is a strong American boy. Because I have seen his eyes redden when he is asked who he is. Because he answers, I don't know. Because to have a son is to have a country. Because my son will bury me here. Because countries are in our blood and we bleed them. Because it is late and too late to change my mind. Because it is time. And next up we have Sage Curtis.
What's up, everybody? I'm going to keep it short. I'm going to do a sonnet. I'm going to do one of my own. Sonnets by Kaizumi Chim. He is a local guy. This is his first book. And it's called Sonnet Ending with Love, so you'll know when to clap because it ends with love. The biggest change happened when I stopped carrying my thoughts in that handbag. I dropped them off on the train and watched them drift into the sun. I was drawn to endings, to misconnections, then to carousels and ocean waves rising and swelling. The wagon circles have paved the way for me to follow. So I never sent for anyone, but you gave me your letter to bend around my body, self-addressed, signed, sealed, no postage needed, like the words were enough. As if these wrists swapped with scars were tough, and I could write my name over anything. Real life was a bird on fire. It burned me, stuffed me in its breast. I wrote it down, called it love. I'm performing this poem every time I read until I don't have to anymore. The things that keep me up at night, number 2. Every time I try to write a protest poem, I think about sleeping, or rather, not sleeping like I've done so often since November. A night that went like choked up at the voting booth, then holding out and holding glass after glass of wine, then crying hard and harder and harder at the bottles lining the kitchen counter, burning an American flag t-shirt because we aren't the kind of people who own an actual American flag to burn, seeing the scorch marks on the driveway, then cleaning up the purple puke caused maybe by a little by the wine, but mostly by fear. And every night since is some retelling of this, some being awake or dreaming about fires burning and scorch marks left behind. I say, stop reading the news, stop reading the headlines, stop thinking about it, stop dreaming about it, but I can't stop watching the war crime trials on TV happening before the war even starts, and I can't stop reading stories of burning mosques and synagogues, and I can't stop standing next to cops on the street as they question the black man they just pulled over, and I can't stop arguing with my father about rape culture and whether it's real, and I can't stop pointing to statistics about immigration and how it makes us stronger, and I can't stop trying to get past the semantics of the words feminist and Black Lives Matter, and I can't stop holding for the miracle I'm holding my breath for, and I can't stop trying to write a protest poem, not even in my sleep.
Bravo!
Galileo first observed the rings as rings in 1610, but did not know what to make of them, suggesting that Saturn possessed ears. Not until a more powerful instrument in 1655 did Huygens solve the mystery. Though a contemporary theologian believed the rings to be Jesus' holy foreskin, ascended into the heavens. Amazing how he used fluid and flesh to quench our questions. Maybe the rings are fetuses. Maybe the rings are strands of my mother's hair. Maybe the rings are the evening lightnings from my dried uterus. Maybe the rings are saliva from apologies never uttered to my husbands for leaving without explanation. Maybe the rings are baby teeth, wisdom teeth, vomit, and shit. Maybe the rings are you when you decide or not what you bargain for. I favor the holy foreskin for some reason. So the poem of mine I'm going to read is actually somewhat inspired by Eagle Han, though not from this collection, rather her previous one, Near Road to the Interior. It's called Irony is Dead. Irony is dead. I heard it whispered once, under a grove of orange trees. No, it was Mancini's. It wasn't a grove, just a single tree. It was his breath that was orange. He sees his father's face in the mirror, the droopy eyes, the broad nose, the shaggy brown hair. But then in a twitch, it is gone. Everyone says you look more like your mother. Today the cat is dead. Often I describe my days in terms of Schrodinger's famous thought experiment. one with a half-dead, half-live cat in pots. The cat stays this way until someone looks at it, then it chooses, dead or alive. Every morning before breakfast, I tiptoe over to the box, lift the lid, and peer inside. The branches of the manzanita tree are as sinuous as Coltrane at the Five Spot on a Thursday night in 1957. Its bark is as cool as Miles Davis standing anywhere. Other trees at the Pinnacles National Monument: blue oak, gray pine, California buckeye. Top of the Rock. On Saturday the 2nd, I stood atop of the Rockefeller Center and looked out over Manhattan cityscape. On Saturday the 9th, I climbed on top of a real rock at Pinnacles in California and watched the earth roll away from me. I didn't think of my father either day, though he had never been to New York or Pinnacles. Everybody sings, even cats. After breakfast, I walk to the bus stop. I take a different route each day to placate my fears of being followed. Of course, the same bus stop and the same bus. Though some days, when the bus is crowded, I'm squinting in the stale air, I feel a slight breeze on my neck and detect the vague scent of rotting citrus. These events for the past, I think, 10+ years. He's also a great poet and a all-rounded guy, Daryl Dela Cruz.
Hello. April 27th was Home in Your Pocket Day, and then I received this to put in my pocket. I'm just going to read it. It's called My Accent by Anna Yin. It is charming, I assure you, I assure myself, and choose to believe so. Languages have colors. I'll just show you my tender blue. But you cut off with fork and knife quicker than my chopsticks do. My accent grows trees, trails, and winding roads to West Coast landscape. It points to the open sky. Yet clouds are too heavy and form raindrops. My papers collect them, then dry in silence. I have hesitated many times before speaking. Now it develops teeth, even the gaps between. I decide, this is my voice. So I want to introduce Robert Pesich, who is the president of Poetry Sounds Foundation.
Very briefly, thank you all for coming out. Thank you, Alan, and give Alan another round of applause, please. All the organizations that stood up and contributed to this event. President of Poetry Center San Jose, and we've got just a brief announcement of a few events coming up. We're in a Community Literary Arts Center out at Markham House in History Park, San Jose. Veterans Right, a writing workshop for veterans and their family members, meeting this Friday, May 5th at Martin Luther King Library. Well-read reading series featuring Tanya Martin and Caesar Kent on May 9th at Works San Jose. That's 7 to 9 p.m. Third Thursdays at Willow Glen, May 18th, 7 to 9 p.m. That's featuring this month Dennis Richardson. Thank you, Dennis. And Eastridge Open Mic at Barnes & Noble in Eastridge Mall, featuring Tyson Kamir. That's 6 to 8 p.m., May 16th. Burning Tale, the final chapter. It's ending. This is 2 years good run, but they're ending. That's May 20th. So come out and celebrate with Sally Asha as the feature at Studio Bongiorno. Séjour, now accepting manuscripts at the Séjour table with Bill Cusini at the helm. And PCSJ, in partnership with Red Wheelbarrow at De Anza College, is now accepting submissions for the Red Wheelbarrow Poetry Prize. And all of these things you can find on our website, www.pcsj.org, and mark your calendars. San Jose Poetry Festival, History San Jose, October 21st and 22nd, with Barbara Jane Reyes, keynote Arlene Biala, we've got David Perez, we have Ohlone poet Deborah Miranda coming, Princess Karen, a whole host of great talent. So check it out. From Antonio Machado, 4 lines. cosas tiene el hombre que no sirven a la mar? 4 things of no use to humanity while out at sea. Ancla, anchor, rudder, oars, and the fear of going down. Thank you. Now, in the show here, please give it up for KKUP's host of Out of Our Minds, Rochelle Escamilla. Come on and bring us home.
So I just want to say really quickly, this is 10 years. We've been doing this for 10 years. And it started with a dream. I had a dream after a poetry class while I slept, and then I had a dream. And then the next day I came to the English department and I said, you know, we should do like this giant reading and have a bunch of poets there and have cocktails. And then everyone was like, yeah, that's great. And then we had to go do all the paperwork and actually put it together. So we did, and it's here. And the PWC is still going, and we still have this reading, and it's amazing. So thank you for being here. One more round of applause, please. So I'm actually going to finish this poetry reading with prose. Home economics. Our first project was sewing an apron for ourselves. I had already worked a whole summer in the sewing factory, and every day after school headed there to sew lining into jackets, set collars and sleeves onto blouses, sew zippers into skirts and pants. The home economics teacher did not ask us if we knew how to sew. Instead, she spent the first day showing us how to thread a sewing machine. How could I tell her I didn't need a tracing wheel to sew a straight line or half a semester to sew an apron? Sensing that the lives of immigrant families and their children who worked 12-hour days behind industrial sewing machines would be foreign and thus incomprehensible to her, I said nothing. Besides, I couldn't tell an adult white woman how silly her home economics class was when compared to the real-life experience of her students. And that's by Laura Jo Fu. Thank you. Sorry.
We're going to take an intermission. We're finishing getting the sound set up on the main stage. There will be programs handed out if you don't already have one. The doors will be opening shortly. We invite you to stay. There will be more poetry and culmination with Al Young, Emeritus Poet Laureate of the state of California, and the one and only Maxine Hong Kingston. Thank you for spending this hot afternoon with us. And we'll see you soon.
My name is Judy Baker, and I'm the director of the Mosaic Cross-Cultural Center at San Jose State University, and we're one of the sponsors of tonight's event. First, let's thank BJ and Roy Hiribashi for their performance. What a great start to our evening together. Before I introduce our MC tonight, I just want to share a little bit about Mosaic Cross-Cultural Center. In a nutshell, we are a social justice center that actively engages our students in critical dialogue about institutional and structural inequities in our society. I just want to share a little bit about myself and kind of perhaps why I was asked to introduce our MC tonight. My passion for diversity started in college, like many of you sitting here in the audience. That was many moons ago. And it was influenced by literary works like Maxine Hong Kingston's book, The Woman Warrior, which I read in one of my classes. It changed my life as it cemented my interest in studying ethnic studies, and it helped me shape my career path. The Woman Warrior was the first book I had ever read that was written by an author that resembled me and my life narrative as an Asian American woman from an immigrant family. Her work was incredibly important for me, as well as timely, as I was just learning to give my voice to my own experience as a woman warrior. So fast forward almost 25 years later, and here I have the honor of standing on the same stage with one of my legendary heroes, Maxine Hong Kingston. So when Ellen asked me if I would introduce our MC, I don't think it really was a question. This is a once-in-a-life opportunity. So without saying more about how excited I am here tonight, I'd like to welcome you all to the beautiful Hammer Theater Center, and we'll now introduce tonight's MC, Mr. Lloyd LaCuesta. Lloyd LaCuesta was the longtime South Bay Borough Chief for KTVU Channel 2. He was awarded 6 Emmy Awards and many other accolades during his broadcasting career, which spanned 43 years with 36 years at KTVU. Some of his major stories included the Loma Prieta earthquake in 1989, the Oakland Hills firestorm in 1991, and the Columbine High School shooting in Colorado in 1999. He attended California State University, Los Angeles, and our very own San Jose State University, earning a BA in journalism and political science. He won the Sigma Delta Chi Award for reporting while he was at SJSU. He then went to UCLA, where he received his MA in journalism. He was the first elected national president of the Asian American Journalists Association, for which he earned a Lifetime Achievement Award. He was also president of the Unity Journalists of Color. He's been an adjunct professor of journalism at San Jose State University for many years, and it's fitting to welcome him back to San Jose State University at today's Legacy of Poetry Day. So please join me in welcoming Lloyd LaCuesta as our MC for this evening.
Thank you very, very much. Boy, that intro was, I could grow my beard even longer how that goes. But I am so happy to be back here at San Jose State, which is my alma mater. And I go way back. The guys in the statue on campus, Tommy Smith and John Carlos, are friends of mine. And I was there when all of that happened. This has a special place for me. And I was thinking about, I don't know why I'm the person to be the MC, because all I did at San Jose State was I spent a lot of time sitting around the fountain trying to think up poetry, but I worked more in my can than anything else in one class. And I still did something with words. I wound up going into journalism, which is a far cry from poetry. And let me just say, I'll just make this one statement. I'm retired now, and in many ways I'm glad I'm not a journalist anymore. But just have hope things will change eventually. So let me formally welcome you all to the Hammer Center Theater to celebrate the legacy of poetry at San Jose State University and the legacy of Asian American poetry in the Bay Area. Now, before we begin, let me acknowledge the event's producers who have put together this literary festival. Arlene Biala, current Santa Clara Poet Laureate. I'll say more about her later. Dr. Jerry Hura, community activist and president of the board for the contemporary Asian theater scene, better known as CATS. Robert Pesich, president of Poetry Center San Jose. And Alan Sandovsky, head of creative writing at San Jose State University. We are also pleased that this program has been sponsored by so many organizations on and off the SJSU campus. They include San Jose State University's College of Humanities and the Arts and its Dean, Lisa Voldendorf, the Department of English and Comparative Literature, the San Jose State University President's Office, the Mosaic Cross-Cultural Center, SJSU Student Involvement, SJSU Associated Students, and the Poets and Writers Coalition Student Club. Also, the Legacy of Poetry Day Festival has been produced in association with Contemporary Asian Theater and Scene, CATS, and Poetry Center San Jose, with support from Poets and Writers, Inc. in New York. Now, our first performer, I'm happy to say, we immediately bonded when I walked in. Not because she's such an outstanding performer, but she's one of my peeps. I'm Filipino, so. And when it was mentioned that I was president of the Asian American Journalists Association, people said, your name's LaQuesta, and shouldn't you be with the Hispanic group? But I'm Filipino, and Mexicans and Filipinos, we shared the same colonial masters, so therefore here we are. But Arlene Biala, award-winning poet who has been participating in poetry performances and workshops in the Bay Area for more than 20 years. She is currently Poet Laureate of Santa Clara County for 2016-17. She will be performing accompanied by two more Bialas. Billy Biala on saxophone. Bill has been playing the saxophone for 40 years. Yes, right. Bill has been nominated for Best Saxophonist by the South Bay Blues Society 3 times. Now, working as a freelance saxophonist, he has performed with John Lee Hooker, Lydia Pence, Greg Allman, Kate Webster, Deacon Jones, Albert Collins, James Cotton, just to name a few. And Jimmy Biala on percussion. Jimmy Biala is a professional music educator and performer. He performs regularly playing Latin percussion and drums with the James Robinson Ensemble and with the Bay-based Sound and Social Justice Collective, which includes the ensemble's Music at Large, featuring Louis Jordan and Creation Story, directed by John Carlos Pereira. He has performed in China, Taiwan, Germany, France, Canada, and the United States. He has received a Downbeat Magazine Award for Excellence in Jazz Recording and Performance. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to Arlene Biala with Billy Biala and Jimmy Biala.
Good evening, everybody. How are you tonight? How are you tonight? Thank you so much for coming. My brother Jimmy Biala to my left, Billy Biala to the right. We're known as the Filipino Von Trapp family. First off, I would like to say thank you very much to our MC Lloyd LaQuesta, along with everyone he named. My mother, our mother and father, Gloria and Hermie Biala, are in the house. I can't see them, but can we give them a round of applause? I think my mom really came out tonight to see Lloyd. After so many decades of us watching him on TV, but no offense to all the other great artists we have tonight. I would like to say that sharing the stage tonight with these artists and musicians is really beyond humbling for me, and I could stand up here and talk story about how pretty much all of them have impacted my life and my writing over the years. One of them, Jenny Lim, actually made me switch my MFA program to come study with her. I won't name names of schools, but you know, so that's just an example. But instead of doing that, because we have a long lineup and we don't have time, I'd like to share a praise poem that I wrote for them with my brothers. Dahil sa'yo. Because of you, I stand at the edge of the ocean and remember to invoke their names. Manong Al Robles, Lola Amonita Balahadia, Yuri Kochiyama, Virginia De Arujo, Danielle Meitin, Francisco X. Alarcon. Because of you, I beckon to Yemaya. I beckon to Yemaya with lips uncurled and eyes forward until she appears, her skin swaying white caps with her skirt on the sea. Because of you, I still try to hit those high notes when singing Reasons by Earth, Wind and Fire. Persistence learned through hearing you play your alto sax each morning before school. Because of you, I place my hands on the drum, listen closely for the call, and respond with a song of ancestors who have come to remind us who we are. Because of you, I am woke. I am sorry, not sorry. Diaspora weaving wildly through my hair, refusing to be tamed, refusing to be named. Because of you, I do hip circles to channel the divine instead of the doubt. To remember that I am enough, and that we back each other up in parking lots when evil is about to go down. Because of you, fear will not win. You are the anti-man about town. Because of you, I labor in love and resistance. My sister, you remind me that some days poetry cannot save us, that we are not the polite little colored girls that they are looking for. Because of you, I am infused with the powers of the many-mouthed bird, of Aswang and Obake, of woman warriors like Gabriella Silam, Malala Yousafzai, and Rigoberta Menchú. Because of you, we take it to the bridge. 1,000 cranes of peace, we rise on these ways and ways to San Jose. Because of you. I have the honor and the pleasure of introducing these next three poets. I have the pleasure and honor because I'm blessed to call them my friends. When Ellen asked me if I would like to invite the home team poets, Asha, Lorenz, and Quinn were at the top of my list. They're artists, educators, musicians, and revolutionaries. Everyday revolutionaries through all they do in and for our community. So I'm extremely blessed. First up will be Asha. Her passion for social justice focuses on educating youth. She is a hard-working teacher, and this is a school night, so there you go, Asha. She's currently teaching 5th grade in San Jose. Oh, excuse me, 8th grade. And actively training teachers around California how to teach with a social justice lens in order to create authentic global change. Her music, art, and her poetry act as a mirror into the passion and activism she lives out daily. Lorenz, Mazon, Damoc creates performances and mixed media artworks. He has published 2 collections of poetry, I Nako, Writing Through Struggle, and I Think in Poetry. By demonstrating the omnipresent lingering of a corporate world, Lorenz tries to grasp language. His heartfelt work gives space for his audience to feel connected with themselves and the world around them. And third up on the mic tonight will be Quinn Myun. Quinn Mai is a Vietnamese-American social artist and musician. She's actively involved in a local multicultural arts education programs, such as Bloco del Sol's Brazilian drumming and dance group. Shout out to Bloco del Sol. The Mali, or Multicultural Arts Leadership Initiative at the School of Arts and Culture at Mexican Heritage Plaza, and Silicon Valley Debug. She's also a graphic designer, an event producer, and leads the folk R&B group Q&A. First up on the mic, please welcome Asha.
Peace, y'all. Thank you for having me here. Thank you for sharing space. Shouts to Squad for putting me on. For my grandmother. I asked her in broken Gujarati and English, needing my mother to fill voids of words we both didn't understand, Ba. If you could have done anything with your life, money, family, tradition aside, what would you have wanted to do? Questions, lost in translation, not for lack of words, but for lack of dreams. Confusion, context unknown and inconceivable. The perplexed look on her face sent me into internal tears, tearing at my soul, knowing she was never fully given hers. Identity that would never belong to her because she was always owned, belonged to families she had never met. Ba came from extreme poverty in Kenya, with the loss of her mother at the age of 2, the remarriage of her father, and subsequent step-siblings to follow. She was a pawn, a trading card, not a rare hologram demanding recognition of value and fairness. No, at 17, a dowry that would never be enough, drowning in suffocation. She never had a voice. Told, this family has more than we do. It will be a better life for you than it would be here. Besides, there are so many other kids we have to care for. Given to in-laws that would doubt her contribution, claiming tainting and devaluing of caste pride, constantly looked down upon, constantly striving for acceptance, forced to learn the ways of a new family who had more than she ever did as to denounce her own poverty-stricken shame. So when I asked her, what are your life dreams? She had no answer. No conception of a dream without responsibility, without expectation, no conception of a dream without responsibility, without expectation, without reins. Rain would come and fall, but she never learned what control felt like. So when I asked her, what are your life dreams? Immediately, she wished for her family to be taken care of, to not have to worry if her children could afford rent that month. I tried to construct the fantasy in which all of those responsibilities were no longer hers to bear. That there was no religious constraint on her ability, that she could do anything in the world, that her illiteracy would be non-existent, and anything she could imagine would be possible again. Bob, what are your life dreams? You see, being asked to answer a question in which even your utopian society structured itself in such a way that you remained the servant she didn't know how to answer. I tried again after some prompting, some vague suggestions. I asked her if you could have done anything with your life, Ba, money, family, tradition aside, what would you have wanted to do? Her answer, more telling than reality, she said she would want to help others, help children, elders, build a home for those without, provide care for those without. I wanted to cry, I had to hold it in because all she has ever known was living for someone else. I wanted to ask her, who has ever cared for you? There's no point in asking a question that you already know the answer to. No one has ever cared for her or asked her what she thinks, what she wants, what she dreams. It was never an option. I have one more question. Bob, if you could go anywhere in the world where without thought. Second, if her dreams were more like nightmares, she easily answered, Kenya, home. Desire to return after exile has haunted her ever since that 1972 evening, wishing to have never seen the refugee camps, the Air France rescues to escape decapitation and slaughter. She came from a poor, low-caste family, but in Uganda she lived. She didn't dare to dream once they barely evaded Idi Amin because life still belonged to her. And that was enough. Won't go home, she says. And I can't stop the crying, and I have to excuse myself and leave. Thanks, y'all.